Yeah.
recording, and you have keyboard and mouse control.
Perfect. All right. So we're going to start with the dental chart first, and then it's just the built-in dental chart that AVImark has. So that being said, typically when clinics are using it, they'll place their dental treatment code, of course, into medical history. Oh, that probably wasn't a good one to choose, but then once they've gotten their dental code placed in medical history, over here to the side, underneath attachments, you have your dental chart option. When you click in that little box like you're going to uncheck it, it opens up your dental chart. Now, the first thing that you want to understand about the dental chart in AVImark is the fact that it only has a built-in dental chart for canines, felines, and equines. So if you have any other species of patient and you go to open up the dental chart, it'll be blank. Now, whenever you're looking at it, you've got the 3 different views of each tooth, and you've got your different quadrants in here. The values above or below each tooth is just where you can either enter in your probing depths or your gingival indexes. And you tell AVImark which one you're entering by coming up to your assessment option here at the top, and whichever option has the check next to it, that's the one that you're saying that you're entering. So you could start with probing depths, and when you're entering those, you can use your tab button to tab to the next tooth, and even when you get all the way done with one quadrant, it'll go to the next quadrant for you as well. And then once you're finished, you just come up to assessment again and click on gingival indexes, and you'd be able to start entering those values as well. Now, when you're done with that, in your dental chart, you've got some basic annotations that you can make from your general tab here. You have just a regular line that you can put over a tooth. You can put a square or a circle. You can also freehand on a tooth as well, which would just allow you to put whatever type of image that you'd like on there. You've got an arrow that you can utilize to also point at a certain spot of the tooth, a highlight option, and even a text. So if you selected the text option here, all you're doing is basically making a text box inside of your dental chart somewhere, and then you can begin to type whatever text you'd like to place on there. All right. Now, you also have an image option that you can use if you took, for example, before and after shots of the patient's teeth, before the dental and after the dental. As long as you've uploaded those images onto your computer, you can click on the image option here and browse to where you've saved those, and then just open them up, and it'll store those images right here in this image box. Now, in addition to your basic annotations that you have here, if you click on your Abnormalities tab, you have a list of customizable options and annotations that you can make on your dental chart as well. So, if we wanted to say go to extracted tooth, whoops, not that one, missing tooth, we could select it and then just go to the tooth that's missing. And ultimately, since there's 3 different views here, most clinics will just take the annotation and stretch it over all 3 of the views. And when you let it go for missing tooth, it basically just looks like those teeth are missing, so to speak. It's a circle that has a solid white fill in it. You can go to any one of these and begin to select your other options as well. And like I said, these are all customizable. So your abnormalities section right here is pulling from all of your problems in your problem list that you have deemed dental procedures. So if we were to close out of the dental chart, and just like any other window in AVImark, you always want to make sure that you're hitting OK out of here and not cancel, because cancel will not save your changes. If we come into Work With and select Problem List, all of them are listed in your dental abnormalities category. And this is where you would be able to go to customize the way that they look. First off, if we went to, like if you're looking at this list and you think, you know, we don't do implants. I'm sorry?
That was the
Oh, okay.
pager.
Alrighty. So if, like I said, if you didn't do implants, you could right-click on that implant option and come down to Dental Properties. And then in here, see this option Include on Dental Chart? We would just simply uncheck that, and then it would no longer be listed as an option in that abnormality section. Now, when you have that selected, you have the option of selecting what little image you would like next to it on your dental chart. And this dental annotation is where you're able to say what you want that annotation to look like. So like right now for implant, it's set to image, but notice down here under dental image, there's nothing linked. That's why when we clicked on extracted tooth at first, we got an error message. So if you had an image that you wanted to use, you would simply click on your browse button and you'd be able to browse to wherever that image would be saved at, typically in your dental folder. Here's our implant image that comes sample with AVImark, and we could hit open and then hit OK. Same thing now, if we went to the extracted tooth, we could right click on it, come down to Dental Properties, and since it's got image, just attach that extracted tooth image and open. If you wanted to change any of the others that didn't have an image associated with it, like that missing tooth option, if we did our right-click Dental Properties here, we can see, like in the annotation, it's set to an ellipse, and the pen color of the annotation is set to this blue color here. Now, when you're looking at your annotations, anytime it's something that has an enclosed center, like a circle or a rectangle, then we're going to have the ability to associate a fill color as well. And that's why, with the fill color showing white and the style being solid, when we put that missing tooth annotation on the dental chart, it basically just looks like that tooth is missing. But once you've customized those, that's how you're able to customize those abnormalities. And now, since we fixed the extracted tooth, we can highlight that dental in medical history again and select our dental chart option. And if we click on abnormalities here and select extracted tooth this time, it should go ahead and allow us to use our extracted tooth image, which is just this big red X. Now, you also have the ability, if you come up to assessment, to go to a specific tooth if you'd like by selecting tooth selection, and then you're simply typing in the tooth number. You also have the ability to adjust your tabbing order. Like we saw a few moments ago when we were entering in the probing depths and gingival indexes, you can specify how you would like the quadrant order to go, and if you'd like the tab to be from left to right or right to left. Once you've completed your dental chart, you do have the option, if you come up to File here, to print it out and give it to the client. When you print it, it should pull all of the abnormalities that you did, so all of those annotation images. And then, of course, when you're completely finished, you're just going to be hitting OK.
Will it pull the images if you attached any images?
On the printout, it wouldn't.
So you really can't do anything with those images?
You just would be able to see them there.
Okay.
Now I'm just going to adjust the date here on that dental real fast, because one other thing that I want to show you about how this dental chart works is the next time that you open it, like we'll say it's a year later and they've come back in for their next dental procedure, dental cleaning maybe. Once it gets placed in medical history and we open up this dental chart, it's going to show everything that they've had done in the past, because essentially these teeth would still be missing, these teeth would still be extracted, or this tooth. But what you can do to make it a little easier on the eyes, so to speak, if you come up to view here at the top, you have a current history only option. So when you select that, it's going to only show things that you did on that visit's dental chart. And when you're printing it, let's go ahead and put a few things on here. Let's go ahead and say we did an implant. And some. Oh, not this one. Okay. That current history only is going to be obeyed whenever you print the dental chart out as well. So with that current history only selected, when I go to print, it's only going to print out things that happened on that visit's dental chart. If I had everything showing, so my current history only option was not selected, and I went to print it, it would print everything that's ever happened. Now also, when you're inside of your dental chart here, you've got a history drop down here at the top, so you can easily select other visits' dental charts to see what was done on those quickly. Make sense? Now under your edit, you do have the option to delete an annotation. So if we selected one, see how right now that little line is selected with the 2 dots at the end? If I go to edit and delete annotation, it takes that annotation off. So if there was another one that I wanted to delete, I would just select it and delete it like that as well. And under File, you can also, if you needed to, like if you placed a dental chart on an incorrect entry in medical history, you'd be able to go to File and delete to remove it if you didn't go any further than just accidentally opening it. And once you start attaching dentals to certain procedures in medical history, you're going to be able to come over to your Dental Medical View tab down here at the bottom to see everything in medical history that has a dental chart attached to it. Do you guys have any questions about your dental chart?
Nope.
So that's the one way, and that's usually how most clinics do utilize it. They just open it manually each time. But if you guys decide that you do for sure want to use the dental chart, on your dental codes, you do have an action code that you can give it, which is the 5. That would mean once you place that code in medical history, it would automatically bring up a dental chart for you. All right? All right, so now if you guys don't have any questions about your dental chart, we'll go ahead and move on to your whiteboard. Your whiteboard in AVImark was designed to be a centralized location that you can see everything that either needs to happen or is going to happen at the clinic. So that being said, in here you have 3 tabs: an arriving tab, a checked in tab, and a schedule tab. Your checked in tab is going to basically show you everyone who is currently checked in to the clinic. There's more things that you can do with your checked in tab, but for this moment, that's the main thing that I want to point out to you guys. And we're going to come back to it. Now, your arriving tab is going to show you all of your appointments that are still due to come in. And if you're using the boarding calendar, it's going to show you all of your boarding reservations that you have due to come in today as well. Now, strictly just a whiteboard feature in AVImark, if you ever need to print out all of your boarding reservations, you have to come into the whiteboard and come to your boarding sub-tab here, and you can just come to File and Print Census, and this is going to allow you to print out your boarding reservations. Now, typically, you're going to want to put the bullet next to check-in date range, so you can select, a date range for when they're checking in. Otherwise, if you didn't and you printed it, it would just print all the boarding reservations you have. But now, you can hit Preview, and it'll show all of those for you. Oh, whoop. You also have an option to print out your notes as well, if any of your boarding reservations would have notes, so that would show also. On your Appointments tab, you have this Show Ghost option, which would just show you any appointment that's already been checked in. To me, it kind of defeats the purpose of what your Arriving tab stands for. Your Arriving tab should just be showing you, again, who is still due to come in. If they've already been checked in my opinion, I don't need to see them on my Arriving tab anymore. Now, the next one that you have is your Schedule tab in here. Your Schedule tab was designed to show you what needs to be done to the patients that are currently checked into the clinic. This tab works great for patients that are hospitalized, or even for boarding patients that just need to have things done while they're staying with you. And also patients that are coming in just for procedures. Because as we saw yesterday, when we were talking about medical condition record, you can, from your plan area, post charges to an estimate, and you can also post charges to your Schedule tab. So now, let's go ahead and check Gemma in here. We're just doing a quick on-the-fly check-in there. And now, since we've checked her in, we can see her on the checked-in tab. And I wish her no ill will, Andy, but we're going to say that she's being hospitalized. So we can come over to the Schedule tab here and say maybe she just needs to have fluids administered a few times. So from my Schedule tab here, I can right-click and come to New. Whenever I'm manually placing something on the Schedule tab, it's going to make me select a patient. Now, this patient drop-down should only be showing you patients that are currently checked into the clinic. So, of course, since Gemma's the only one checked in, it defaults to pulling up with her. And I can go ahead and hit OK. And then my whiteboard activity window is going to come up. So here, I can tab over to my description field and begin to type in what I need to have done. And at this point, double-click on it. And it fills the rest of that window out with the code for me. Now, at this point, if I just needed to put one entry on here for these fluids, I could hit OK. But if I wanted this to be done, say, 2 times a day, and I just kind of estimated and foresaw that we were going to keep Gemma for 2 days, I could come down to my repeat and frequency field and add all 4 of those at the same time. So in my frequency, since I said 2 times per day, I would put in 2 and leave it times per day here. And then over in my repeat, I would put in the number of times I wanted this to be repeated. So again, if I knew that this needed to be done twice a day and we were estimating that she was going to be staying with us for 2 days, then in my repeat, I would put in 4. Does that make sense?
No.
Okay.
But it's you're repeating it twice with a frequency of 2 times per day. That to me says
right. So it's going to be done a number of 4 times.
So she's saying we're
That's the
giving
total amount of
fluids.
treatments.
We're
Yeah,
giving fluids
but
4
to me,
times.
repeat would be how many
Yeah.
days you're repeating it.
That's what I thought was going to be the amount. I mean, I get it.
So if she's gonna be there 3 days, that would be 6.
Yes.
Yeah, that's not very intuitive. Okay.
You can even assign a specific user if you'd like to that particular entry or activity. But then at that point, when we hit OK, what's going to happen is now all 4 of those entries are going to be placed onto our whiteboard. We just want to click yes to this predefined dosage schedule. And now we can see all 4 of those entries on the schedule tab. The first being due by 5 p.m. this evening, the second being due at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, the third at 5 p.m. tomorrow evening, and then the last Friday at 8 a.m. And this 5 p.m. and 8 a.m. is just what AVImark's default dosage schedule is for something that's put in as a BID basically. And that is changeable. So if you don't like those default times, we can change them. But now at this point, let's say we wanted these fluids to be administered before 5. We could come to this line entry here and double click on it and adjust your time right here. Like if we wanted it to be done at 12, even though 12's passed. I want to show you what would happen. Once an entry is technically overdue, then it turns red on your schedule tab. So it's bringing it to your attention that it's already overdue and needs to be done. Now, as you're performing these activities and you're doing these functions from your whiteboard, if you just have it, most clinics just have it open in the treatment area somewhere. Once an entry is done, you can right-click on it and come down to post, and then it's going to put that charge into the patient's medical history, and it's going to mark it completed from your whiteboard. So see how it grays it out? Now here at the top, you have a show completed option and a today only option. To me, because you can imagine if you have 10 patients hospitalized, this schedule tab could potentially be quite large or have a lot of entries on it. If something's already been done, by default, to me, I don't necessarily need to see it anymore because it's already completed. So I would probably have show completed not checked, and I'd probably have today only checked, so I'm only seeing things that either need to be done today or that are overdue from yesterday that potentially didn't get done. All right.
So if you have a patient that's getting several things done, like fluids, injections, Medicaid, like all this stuff, is it going to group it by the patient, or is it going to, like, does that make sense? Like, will it group everything together?
On your schedule tab here, see how there's little arrows next to some of these columns? Like on your start column, there's one pointing down, and the time there's one pointing up. You can organize it by any one of these column headings. So if you wanted to, you could organize it by the patient, so it groups all of the patient information together. So we don't have another checked-in patient, but all of Gemma's things that need to be done would be grouped together, and it would be in alphabetical order.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
We wanted to group by time for each, like it'll show us all the patients that need to be done at 8 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 2 o'clock.
The problem is it'll say 8 o'clock for multiple days, right?
Not if you do the today only.
Okay.
Oh, yep, that's correct. If you do today only, you're only going to see entries for today, and then you'd be able to organize it by that time column.
I do like that.
All right. Now, I mean, as far as really basic functionality of the whiteboard goes, that's it. Remember, if the patient's coming in for a procedure and you have an estimate, then you can also take that estimate after you've printed it out and post that to the whiteboard. So all of those entries on the estimate would instantly go there for you. But another way that you can use the whiteboard, maybe if you're not so much using it on the schedule tab, although it's a good feature, you can use this whiteboard as a communication tool as well between the front and the back via this checked in tab here. When your patients are showing here, you can, let's try to make this bigger. Just like we can organize entries on your schedule tab here, we can organize your checked in tab by any one of these column headings at the top. And we can even pull out more columns as well. To do that, if we right click and come to view, we've got a columns option. And now two of the popular columns that clinics like to pull out first, there's a status column here that if I just left click on it and drag it up, see how now I've got two green arrows where I want it to go, and I just let go and it puts the status. And then there's also a released column that I can pull out. And this released column has to do with the control patient checkout feature that AVImark has. And then we can close out of this columns window. But what clinics were wanting was a way for the back to indicate to the front that a patient was basically ready to go. Now, lots of clinics have come up with a different method for this, like by placing a ready-to-go code or invoice complete code in medical history. But if you're using the whiteboard, then you can save yourself that step. What you can do is, let's say I'm a tech in the back putting in charges. Once I've completed putting in all those charges, I can just go to the patient area and right-click, come down to whiteboard, and hit release. Or if I can remember function keys, I could also just hit Control F8. But then what would happen is now on the whiteboard, that released column is going to be checked. So what the front is doing, if the client's walking up, they've got the whiteboard open, they're going to be able to see, okay, is the released column checked? Potentially, okay, not yet. The whiteboard should refresh on its own in AVImark every 30 seconds. But if it's not, you could also, as a front desk worker, hit your F11 function key on your keyboard, and then that will automatically refresh it. So as soon as the back releases the patient, you'd be able to see it. You can also, when it comes to your patients on your checked in tab, like right now, Gemma is in the status of outpatient. If she really was hospitalized, from in here, we can right-click on her entry and come down to status and change it to hospitalized right here. So these statuses are hard-coded in the program, so we can't add to or take away. There's a hospitalized option, a boarded option, an option for other, and an option for outpatient. So you'd be able to hit hospitalized and then hit OK, and it would change that status for us. Now, like I said, you can organize these columns by any of them. So if we wanted to click on the status column, we could have all of our hospitalized patients grouped together, all of our outpatients grouped together, and all of our boarding patients grouped together. And also the neat thing about the whiteboard is the way that it looks is computer specific. So the way that you view the whiteboard on, say, your treatment computer can be completely different than the way the whiteboard's viewed in your boarding area.
Is it computer specific or user specific?
I'm sorry?
Is it computer specific or user specific?
Computer specific.
Okay.
So I believe by the times of the treatments.
Mm-hmm.
Reception can group it by hospitalized, outpatient, blah, 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 and boarding.
Yep, that's what I was going to show you guys next. If we come up to view here at the top and click on this show hide group panel option, it looks like it just puts a gray line in here. But if I drag this status column up, then I would get them even more basically grouped together. There'd be a tree for each status. So like again, in the boarding area, they may not need to see everyone who's an outpatient. They might just want to see who's in for boarding. They could have just expanded the boarding group. Just another way that you could view that. Now, like I said, you can also use this whiteboard as a communication tool as well. So let's say, for example, that Gemma was coming in to get spayed, or she was just in for a procedure. The client dropped her off and was asked, you know, okay, when will the surgery be done? Which I'm sure you guys get that all the time. If the client were to call before you or a tech had the chance to just shoot them maybe an email or give them a call to let them know that their animal's fine, once the procedure's done, someone can come into that patient's line entry in here and right-click on it and come to Notes. And of course, always do a Control-D so it puts in your date timestamp. But just put something brief in like, patient did well in surgery and will be ready for pickup at 3:30. Something quick, not too long by any means. But when you do that, on the whiteboard, we can turn it on to where those notes show. If we come to the preview text and click on Show and Notes, then as soon as you open up your whiteboard, you're going to be able to see that. So if the client calls to check on the animal and the front answers, or anyone answers, they're going to be able to open the whiteboard. Okay, Andy, it looks like Gemma did good in surgery today, and she's going to be ready for you to pick her up at 3:30. Potentially changing a call that could have been 7 to 8 minutes because someone would have had to put that client on hold to go see how the animal's doing, to maybe a 30-second to a minute call. That way, too, you're not having to put the client on hold where they're going to be anxious. Why they said, I'm going to be on hold for just a second. Why has it been 5 minutes? You'd be able to see that all from the same spot. Does that make sense?
Yep.
That's probably my personal favorite thing about the whiteboard. I've seen clinics take it a step further. So like if they did have a patient in for a procedure, they'd come into these notes and start putting in, you know, their date timestamp, patient prepped. Whoops, not peppered. So that if the doctor's maybe in their office and they're looking and they open up the whiteboard, okay, looks like Gemma's good to go. I'm going to head on out there. Only thing is, if you use this whiteboard as a communication tool like this, you never, under any circumstances, want to put any kind of a medical note in here. Because what happens, once that patient checks out, these notes just go away. So they are strictly just for notes about the patient that's just communicative between the two areas, or between any areas in the clinic. All right.
Is there a way that we can turn that on to save to the medical notes, or is it just not built that way?
It's just not built that way. I mean, if you knew it ahead of time, potentially you could come in here and open the notes and try to copy and paste them, but that would be it.
Okay.
Right? Do you guys have any questions about your whiteboard or dental chart? Or anything that we've covered so far that you'd like to see again?
Not that I can think of. Is that it then for today?
That's all, yeah. Now it looks like, and I might give you a call back, Andy,